Welcome to today's video. I'm Michael Abney with Inspire Realty, and today I am joined by
Elizabeth.
And John.
And these are part of my team here at True Title. We're talking about title today, sort of taking the mystery out of it, looking a little bit behind the scenes, and expressing to you, a lot of my clients always ask me about title, like what is it? They think that this is just a place that they come to sign paperwork and either get money or take money home and get the keys to their new house, which is true, but a lot of stuff happens prior to that closing day. And I kind of want to talk about that today, just to provide some value for you so that you have a little bit of insight about how hard that the team of your title company, why it's so important to choose the right one. For me, I was lucky enough when I started my career, I was at Red Key, and you guys have an office at Red Key. And I worked with Bruce Cattleman there, which was an incredible closer. You guys always have incredible closers. So that just left me with something. So whenever I am in a situation where I am forced to, I say forced, to use another title company for whatever reason, I always have to step my game up just a little bit more because I'm so used to you guys having my back. And a lot of title companies, that's just not the case. It's in communication. And Elizabeth and I have been working together, and that was one of the first things that I said to you whenever I said, "Hey, will you be my number one closer?"
Yeah, absolutely.
And so Elizabeth is my closer. What's your official title?
Escrow closing officer.
And John Banjak is one of the owners of True Title and general counsel. How long have you guys been open?
About 6 years, Michael. Yeah, we started here in Clayton, just up the alley. This is our second location. We have a second location in Clayton, and now we're up to 11 offices. So we've opened 11 offices and grown from 3 of us that started the company to 42, 43 employees in 6 years. So very proud of that, buoyed by a more robust real estate market. We started when things were a little soft and caught the upwave. So some of the credit goes to just the market itself, but we take a lot of pride in our growth and certainly appreciate the opportunity to work with clients like you on a daily basis. And
Absolutely.
I appreciate it too. Like, you have no idea. So what was your why? What was your why when you opened True Title?
Well, I had run a couple of other title companies and found that I'd lacked the authority, unilateral authority to make certain changes or implement certain things that we saw would make for a better place, both for our customers and consumers, but also just as importantly for our employees. For example, in running other companies was limited in how we compensate our people and how we provide an incentive, and had developed ideas on what would be the most motivational way and the most respectful and most proper way to provide compensation to title closers, who are some of the hardest working people I know in any profession, bar none. Yeah. So it was motivated by things like that, the ability to obviously, like, as an entrepreneur, to kind of control our own destiny and to shape things the way we saw it. Again, both in terms of things we learned about what's best for customers, but again, just as importantly about how to treat employees and how to recruit and retain the best in the business. Because it gets cliche, as you know, but Michael, it begins and ends with the employees. It begins and ends, frankly, with the title closers, escrow closing officers, like Liz. I mean, that's where we earn our keep. So that's what motivates us to get started. To provide better product, better services, and to provide a better place for the top performing title closers in St. Louis.
Yes, that get the job done. Yeah. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about we're doing the contract. You guys know that if you've worked in buying or selling a house, you know the realtor aspect of that. But sometimes you're not always present to what's going on behind the scenes. The big question is, like, when you're doing title, like, what's one of the first things that you do?
First thing we do, we're going to pull a search. We're going to pull the history of the property. Title production will actually go and they pull the history of the property, who's owned it, who sold it, all the documents associated with it, to ensure that there's no gaps in what we call the chain, which is the history of your title, and to ensure that the title comes clean, meaning no judgments, no prior owner issues that might come up.
Yeah, so nothing from, like, when you buy a house, they're here to ensure that nothing from the past could come back in and haunt you or cost you money generally.
Sure,
'Cause
absolutely.
anybody that worked on a house prior to, they had some updates and they didn't pay their bill and that wasn't caught by doing a title search and all of the details that go through to make sure that you're getting a clean title. If those weren't performed properly, the guy that put the lien on that or didn't get paid has a right to come back and put a lien back on your house. And you're responsible if that wasn't caught before title, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, they come up, you may have had work done on your house, thought you paid that contractor, or you might be disputing with that contractor, but you're trying to sell the house. That contractor might take it to the county and record what's called a mechanics lien on the property, and now somebody has to pay them to get that lien removed. Whether it could be prior owner issue that might have come up, it could be a current owner issue, and they may not know what's out there.
Yeah.
That happens a lot. Some people don't know that these things are out there and that these liens come up.
And the other part is like the crazy situations that occur during a process that, like, we just had one that was the craziest deal that I have ever done in 5.5 years. It was not on a really large house, but like if there was something that could happen to that house or something that could go wrong, it did.
Oh, absolutely, it did, yeah.
Times 100. And so honestly, I give up in the middle of the process. I'm like, there's no way this is going to close. But like it literally, we just kept going. You kept overcoming obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. I mean, when a seller moves out of town, that's one thing. We do remote closings
Sure.
all of the time. But when that person becomes disabled and he can't use his arm to sign, that creates a whole other
That's a whole new issue, yeah.
in another state. Yeah, like I don't know how you did that, but
Yeah,
you did.
we have to work with two different states' laws to make sure that we
Yeah.
follow both states, because they now reside in a new state, but they're selling a house in this state,
Yeah.
so it has to qualify in both states.
It doesn't happen all of the time,
No.
but when it does, you want to know that you've got somebody that just, because honestly, we didn't know what to do when this was a new situation for me, and I think it was for you too.
It was for me, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I
But-
took it to John over here, and
Do you remember that?
Well, I do remember, and I think that is, what we take pride in, what distinguishes title companies, that most title companies can do 4 out of the 5 straightforward deals, or you'd like to think, but it's the title companies like to distinguish themselves on being able to rescue the trickier deal, the one that potentially could go off the rails, and that's where you kind of earn your keep, earn the respect of your clients, of the realtors, when they realize that you've gone beyond the call of regular duty and thought outside the box to fix a deal and get it back on track. Because we know at the end of the day, it's all about getting the deal closed to the party satisfaction and ultimately to your satisfaction as the agent. And you want to get your
Yeah.
commission check, we get our fees,
Yeah.
and the buyers and sellers get what they need out of the deal. So that's where the rubber hits the road on any of these tricky deals, the ones that we and where you want to have people that are sophisticated enough and are willing enough to roll up their sleeves. Yeah, to
Yeah,
make
it's the willingness
yeah.
for me that was the thing that just sort of like I was blown away by, because you were doing that without even talking to me, like working that all out, which I so appreciated. But so that's one of my crazy stories. So what's like the most challenging thing that you face day to day in title?
We have to make some judgment calls that to be a title attorney, for example, it's not easy for some attorneys who need a square peg in a square, the round peg in a round hole and a square to fit in a square. I mean, we have to think a little bit more on a sort of risk management basis, meaning we sometimes make decisions where a matter isn't clear to the absolute 100% legal certainty, but based on our experience and history and the risk or the low risk that issue is going to ever come up again, and then having to educate the clients who have to make the final call on whether they're comfortable with it. So like if we're dealing with a property, someone who's deceased in Missouri but hasn't, has died within 12 months as opposed to 12 months when things change. Within the 12-month period, creditors could still theoretically
Yes.
open in the state.
Yeah.
But if we're going to go ahead and find a way to close that before the expiration of the 12 months, we have to analyze the risk, take on that risk, make the decision, but then also educate the customer, because even if they're getting title insurance, we can't have them caught off guard if for some reason that issue were to surface again. They
Sure.
would say, why didn't you tell me about it? And instead of just saying, the title company shouldn't just say, well, we insured over it, so don't worry about it. So that's the thing. It's about measuring risk. It's about making judgment calls, and then making sure that you find a way to educate the consumer and the real estate agent who aren't dealing with these issues on a regular basis, and so I think that's just kind of some of the challenges.
It's just not always a straight line.
No,
from
it's not.
point A to
No,
point B.
no. Title is never a straight line.
Yeah.
Or it's not, or at least there's too many deals that aren't. We
Yeah.
need a lot of deals to be fairly straightforward, or we go crazy, right? So percentage-wise, many of the deals do proceed in fairly due course, but
But the other ones stick with you.
no,
always.
Yeah, there are quite a few that stick with me.
Yes,
Yeah.
I always love hanging out with realtors when you swap war stories.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it just kind of helps you get through the day, like being related, knowing that there's a team behind you working
Sure.
is so important. But I want to ask you, like, what do you love about it? Like,
What do I-
what do you love about it?
It's different every day. There's new challenges in title. As this last deal we had was definitely a new challenge that has never come up before. And title's not, like he said, we do have a fair amount of deals that are straightforward, but we have a lot of deals that aren't straightforward. And I enjoy trying to figure out some of the things. It's a different challenge every day I come into this office. And things I don't expect.
I'd say it's interesting. One of the things that people like most is also one of the things that they sometimes like least, and that is that it's a very busy job. The escrow closing officer in particular, but all aspects of our company, where from the outside observer it would seem a bit quiet and sort of mundane, just not very overly glamorous on its face, obviously. But the bottom line is, inside a title company on a daily basis, particularly cyclically during the summer and fall months, it is busy. So you are not, our employees and listeners, you are not looking for your 10-15 break, your noon lunch. You're lucky to squeeze those in, and it becomes 5 o'clock before you know it. So people love that. It can also be the challenge of it, because you're always scrambling. It's hard to feel fully caught up. You have to get used to that. You have to used to some flexibility. You oftentimes work a little bit extra, or have to come in a little bit earlier in the morning. So so again, it's one of those things that I think it's what people really like, as opposed to having a job where they're sort of watching the clock or anything,
Yeah, because it's got to get done, because you got
It's just
deadlines
boom,
on
boom,
everything.
boom.
Yeah, there's
moving.
always deadlines, and we
Yeah.
are always moving. There's
Yeah.
never a down moment. You may have a day or two here and there to just
Right.
kind of get
Catch
caught up,
Mhm.
but it's never, I'm not doing anything. I'm always doing something. We're just always busy around
You are.
here.
And you always return calls too, which I really appreciate. So here's your guys' chance. So tell the people that are going to be watching this, or people that are in the process, thinking about going in the process, consumers that are out there are going to see this video. So what are like 3 things that they can do to help your job make it easier, besides getting your earnest money check in on time? I know.
Besides that one, I say communication. Number one I have is communication, because there's a lot of information I need from both the buyers and the sellers to finish the process and
Like
to get me through the process.
The HOAs.
Oh yeah, homeowners associations are very key to get me that information and get it early. So I can contact them, because that can slow down the process. Because some homeowners associations are very time consuming. They take a long time to get answers from, especially small ones.
Yeah, because most of them they're run by people that live in the neighborhood that have other jobs, and it's not their top priority, even though it's your top priority when you're trying to get your house sold or buying a house. But to them, it's not. So starting that process early, I totally agree with you 100%.
Yeah, just you may think it's silly, like something as small as telling me if you're married or not married. That's super important to me, because that affects a lot of things in the closing. It affects how we do our documents. If you're selling the property and you bought the property as a single person, and then you're selling it as a married couple, I have to get that information about your spouse, because that creates a whole new thing that I have to make sure we have that spouse sign off, because in Missouri we have what's called tenants by the entirety, and therefore you may have not had, though the spouse may not have had an interest at the time when you purchased the property, But when you go to sell the property, that spouse has what's called a marital interest in the property, and they have to get a clear title for the purchaser of your property, they actually have to sign away that interest.
Yeah. So that's super important. Is there anything else that they can do besides communication, getting the paperwork? I know you guys on the sell side, you send out a letter to the seller asking for information. I know I have hard time tracking that.
Sure.
So, we send it over, but like how soon should they get that back to you?
The sooner the better, on any deal. The sooner I get that information back, the better. A lot of the homeowners associations, if you wait to the last minute, they charge extra. They can charge what's called a rush fee, and some of those fees are rather high. And it could save you some money in the closing to get me that information sooner. Because nobody wants to have to pay that extra $200 rush fee. That's $200 you could get back.
Absolutely.
Also, just some municipalities are slower in response. So the quicker I get the information, I can get out to those municipalities and get information back from them for money that may be owed to them if they control your utilities, like Kirkwood controls electric and water, I think, actually. And the faster I can get to them, the faster they can get back to me, and we can move the process along a little faster and know if there's going to be any hiccups.
Okay. So you got plenty of time to work it out in case.
Plenty of time to work it out. Yeah, absolutely.
So communication, earnest money in on time, and filling out all of the paperwork that's requested by the title company so that the process goes smoothly. If there is a bump, you got time to deal with it inside of it without going to an extension, which is always good. Is there anything else?
Well, I think as the closing day approaches, to make sure everybody's on board, make sure everybody's going to be in town. We say we do close some people, sellers particularly that are out of town, but we need to know that ahead of time.
Way ahead of time.
And if there's going to be a power of attorney situation, we prefer that the actual party sign, but sometimes a party's going to be out of the country, or has some sort of disability or incapacity issue. The earlier we know about any needs for doing a power of attorney and accommodating that way, the better. So and then as part of the communication is making sure all parties are brought to the table. So buyer needs to introduce their lender to us and link the lender to the closer right off the bat.
Absolutely.
So that's a key. So we work with the realtor who's representing the buyer, but the lender's just an integral part to what we do.
Absolutely.
And so
communication with the lender is absolutely important, and it does help to speed things up. And letting your lender know all of the information. So if you're not in town and you're buying a property as an investment property, and let's say you're in another state, it's important to let your lender know that. As a surprise, that can sometimes create a very large hiccup in the buying process and maybe delay the closing if they don't know that information.
So all of this is incredible information. I know we're just scratching the surface. So if you guys have any questions for me or John or Elizabeth, I'll put the information down below so that you can contact them with an email if you got a specialized question. But I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done to help me in my career. It's been like not having to worry about that, having things worked out, it's just meant the world to me. So I really appreciate it. So make sure that you choose your title company correctly, something that works for you, and that you're clear on that at the get-go, at the start. So I just want to say thank you guys for helping me out today with providing some value to my clients and people watching the YouTube channel. Really excited about it. I'll put all the information down below, and you guys have a really great day. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.